Alright, so the positives and the negatives to free will. Alright, well, the positives, if this genuine free will, if absolute free will exists, here are the positives of it. Well, it implies that we are totally free. We're totally, absolutely free. No type of slavery can exist, no type of oppression. We are our own boss at any given time. We become empowered. All right, pretty big positives, right? Well, let's look at the negatives and let's see if they're really positive. Well, the negatives is, well, if all of us truly have free will, then if we just keep going down the ladder, down a slippery slope, if you will, which is a fallacy, by the way, but nonetheless, if we truly have free will, then really there's going to be no government, there's going to be no law enforcement, because we are empowered to make any decision we so choose. But that is the precursor to what we call anarchy. And as we know, anarchy just doesn't work. It's a self-contradiction, anarchy is. It's like, yeah, let's be anarchists. But hey, we need a system of rules to be anarchists. Well, then you're no longer an anarchist. See, it just doesn't make any sense. But don't tell that to an anarchist, because to them it does make sense. Anyway, well, the other negative about it is that the three main Western religions, that being Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity, well, they all say that free will is the source of all evil. All right, it is the path to damnation, in other words, having this free will. Well, that's a pretty big negative, right? Whether you accept it or not. But let's see why that's considered a negative. Here's why free will is problematic. It's problematic in the natural world because we're not totally free. We're not. We make our decisions, we make our choices, believe it or not, on three components. Those three components are the physical world, so physics, the natural world, which we can consider like our own genetics, and what we call human laws, or as we'll see later, it's called social determinism. Well, but you may say, well, how do physics and nature determine what we choose? Well, think about it. I really find driving to be tedious. It's boring. I just hate doing it, and even worse, it sucks when you finally get to work, right? So if I had genuine free will, I'd be able to fly to work with wings or something, or maybe even have roller skates and at least have some exercise. But the physics of it don't allow us to fly to work every day. Human beings just can't jump on away like Superman and fly to work and then fly back. Physics, we can't do that, right? So there are some things we can't do. So it limits free will that way, naturally. Some people may prefer blondes over brunettes. Some people may choose intelligence over brawn. But why do you make that choice? You make that choice because naturally you have genetics, your genes make you predisposed to, liking certain attributes about the opposite sex. All right? They do. And so our genetics, in a way, control us. Like a diabetic, for example. Their genetics do not allow them to eat copious amounts of sugar or else they'll die. If they had absolute free will, they could say, well, to hell with my genetics. I'm going to eat as many Snicker bars as I want to. Well, what's going to happen? Well, you'd probably go into a diabetic shock and pass out and die maybe, if there's no insulin around. Genetics make us predisposed to making certain choices. So naturally, it's problematic because, and physically it's problematic because we can't physically do what we want to do through free will, and we can't naturally do what we want to do because we're bound by our genes. Alright? So naturally, that's what's problematic about free will. But now let's look at what's problematic about free will in a religious sense. Alright? Starting with St. Augustine, he's the one that really pinned the notion that free will is the source of all evil. And so if we actually do have free will, mind you, yet we have the religious advocate over here saying that, well, when you die, there's only two destinations you're going to. You're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. Well, only two destinations? Is that a type of free will at all? If someone comes, if you're at work and your boss says, congratulations, you got the option of one, doing exactly what I tell you to do and you're going to keep your job, or two, don't do what I say, do what you want and get fired tomorrow and have no job to feed your family, do you really have an option? Do you really have an option? The answer is no. I mean, who's going to say, yes, I don't want to eat, I want to die, and the rest of my family can just follow suit? Who chooses that? No one really. So essentially what makes the religious argument problematic is that when you say that there's only two destinations that you can go to, then that's not genuine free will. Right? That's like saying the only two movies that exist are, The Matrix and Star Wars. Really? Is that it? Is that all that I can experience? Not likely. So that's what makes the religious argument problematic. Yeah, and so we don't need to go into the rest of that. You don't need to know that for the exam. So free will is problematic because if you genuinely do have free will, if you genuinely have it, then you should be able to do whatever you want. But because we're limited by either physics, by nature, or by the laws that we create, we are limited in that way, and so we genuinely do not have absolute free will. Absolute free will, mind you. Not just average free will. That's what we'll get into with compatibilism later. But absolute free will is very problematic at best. So now in the next video, let's discuss fatalism.